if they've really built their business on the infrastructure and integration side of it, then that's the real value for, for these companies. The rest of it, I don't want to say becomes a moot point, but if they can, the barrier probably is much lower on that side of things, as long as they're getting, the increased amount of visibility and integration. So I don't, that's just a bit of conjecture, but that's what I'm hearing going through this.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The startup, consumer, and enterprise markets are like different planets in the business galaxy. Disrupting the consumer market does not guarantee enterprise success. It's like rocking the party but struggling with a corporate ball. Also, the convergence of the consulting and enterprise market is not new. Whether consulting companies bundle products as part of their portfolio or product companies offer consulting as part of their bundle. Transplace was one of the most cloud-native platforms along with the managed transportation offering. The interesting part about Transplace is that it has some very large accounts, but it's also a leaner offering positioned for smaller companies. So where does Uber Freight stand in its capabilities and how does it compare with the other supply chain solutions out there? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of Transplace TMS capabilities. We covered many grounds, including the differences in TMS solutions that might be managed services companies owned versus technologies. Finally, we covered why Uber Freight decided to acquire Transplace and what customers can expect from Transplace if they decide to buy them. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution. Today is very special, okay? It's Transplace, but they have been acquired by Uber. So obviously we are going to talk about that Uber is probably now in the ERP business. So it's very interesting. Before we start, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my quick intro. If you don't know me, Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. And on that note, I am going to move to Dave for his intro.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own a consulting business called the Chrysler Club, working with manufacturers, helping them to operate with excellence, and come to you with more than 20 years of various operational leadership roles, including one or two system implementations. So thanks for having me, Sam. Happy to be here with you and Andy.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. Andy, can I ask you to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, absolutely. But I just wanted to mention about how, wow, Dave looks like Barry Gibb.
Very subtle, Andy. Very subtle.
My name's Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software for manufacturers for all my life. I've worked all over North America, and I have a published book that helps companies evaluate and uncover the truth about ERP systems before they buy. Thank you so much, Sam.
Okay, thank you so much for being here, Andy. And if you're in the audience, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. We typically try to cover them during the show. If we run out of time, we'll make sure that you receive your answers. On that note, guys, I'm going to start with the quick briefing. This is a very interesting one. As I said, we are reviewing Uber, which is probably an honor in itself, I guess. So in this particular case, this was a TMS, Transplace. So we are going to start with briefing in terms of where they sort of fit overall. It's a very, very, very interesting play. It's a cloud native system and they have a lot of different accounts in the enterprise space, then you are going to find them in the SMB space. You are probably going to wonder, okay, what is their place? Okay, what are they trying to do overall, from their positioning perspective? And Dave, I know we have, whenever we reviewed any of the TMS, WMS platform and NDUs as well, I guess you probably have attended a far more than Dave when it comes to TMS, WMS platforms. So overall, the number of layers that we have reviewed so far, that is going to be, external versus internal supply chain in general. So external is going to be slightly more involved with respect to your ocean, with respect to your air, etc. But for the most part, the internal is going to be your road transportation. But even inside road transportation, you are going to have many different layers. For example, when we reviewed SAP EWM, they were sort of designed for distribution centric businesses. Even if you are going to have external or internal supply chain, that is probably going to be road transportation. They probably don't go for anything else. And if they want to go for anything else, then that's probably going to be their logistics platform. But here, when we look at Transplace TMS, it's really designed from the perspective of the logistics businesses, because the way Transplace business was structured, by the way, it was one of the bigger size companies. Okay, my understanding is that they probably had what, $3.5 billion in revenue, and we'll bet that, because see, I was getting the conflicting stats, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at any of their sort of revenue or the numbers, but Uber bought them for roughly 2.9. That's my understanding, but I saw a figure 3.9 somewhere as well. So I don't know whether that was their revenue or that was freight under management. If it is freight under management, then that would be too low for them in my mind. So I don't know where they are overall in terms of revenue, but they were a sizable business overall, because they were present in some very, very, very large accounts, and their primary business model was that they were the managed transportation provider. Okay, so they were more of the consulting business for the transportation, but they also had TMS. So that's a very interesting play, the kind of business model that ACL has right now, which is buying a lot of different products. My assumption is going to be even IBM is probably going to have very similar model where they are acquiring product just to sell their consulting services. So this is a very similar business model. Now there are always going to be pros and cons of what they have done. But overall, Uber ended up buying them just because they wanted to get into this sort of B2B market. Uh, and it's always a struggle when you are going to be consumer-centric companies. When you look at companies such as your Google, Microsoft, for them, it's very, very, very hard to get into B2B because it's a very different comp model, very different, distribution strategy, very different, sales comp. The kind of structure that B2B companies are going to have, it's going to be very, very, very different. So now Uber actually tried to get in because they wanted to get all of these accounts so that they can push their technology in the B2B space. So that's why this acquisition, it's very, very, very interesting overall. So I'll pause there. I don't know if you guys are going to have any sort of comments. I can take those.
No, it's thank you, Sam. Let's move it on.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so their role and the way I like to compare them is their business model is slightly more the way 3PLs are in the market. Okay, because they are trying to push their own technology, but then they have their own sort of logistics as well. In these guys' case, I mean, they are trying to sort of position their consulting services, but they are not pure play platform. And some companies are going to use them as platform, but if sometimes, I mean, they are going to have their own TMS, but they are also using Uber Freight. So it's very, very, very interesting the way it is sort of positioned in the market. Their main sweet spot that they have is really that rate shopping and ability to book drivers as well as capacity, instantly. I think that's where they really shine. And that was sort of the sweet spot for Uber as well, because they could find drivers quickly. They could have this network effect. That was not as easy for other companies. And when you look at some of the platform companies, they have integration with a lot of the different 3PLs, but they don't necessarily get into the whole collaboration aspect. So that's where I guess the real difference is overall in terms of the platform play versus they are trying to be slightly more than just the platform. Okay, if you guys don't have any other comments, I'll move to the slides. So here, and I really wanted to review, how Gartner views this. Obviously, they are viewing this as the TMS platform because it has ranked in their quadrant as the TMS platform, but they are not ranking as high. Obviously, the reason for that is because they don't have all of those enterprise features that you are going to get with your Oracle, with your Blue Yonder, SAP, Manhattan. These are the ones that we have reviewed so far, and they are really enterprise grade platforms. So Uber Freight is not going to have all of those. But then you are going to be asking yourself, okay, if that is the case, why are they winning these enterprise logos? They have some of the biggest logos in the market, such as your Walmarts of the world, uh, but they are generally using Uber Freight in conjunction with your SAP and Oracle. So they are not necessarily using Uber Freight as their TMS. They might use in some of at the subsidiary level sometimes, but they are definitely using as part of the main TMS, with their main TMS, meaning the main TMS is probably going to be SAP or Oracle, and then they are going to have Uber Freight with that. So we look at, and by the way, in this particular case, this is a site that we have been referring so far, I guess, in many different reviews, and they seem to be on and off overall in their assessment, but they have identified that Kohl's is their customer as well. Obviously, Kohl's is really big in general, so if they can have Kohl's, and again, the question that you are going to ask, okay, if they can handle Kohl's, are they going to be comparable with, let's say, SAP or Oracle? Probably not, because most likely Kohl's is probably using multiple TMS systems, and this might be used, let's say, only in either one subsidiary, or they might be using Uber Freight only for that network effect, as well as the scheduling, but they are going to have, primary TMS as SAP or Oracle. So here they have companies that have purchased TransplaceTMS for transportation management from public. Okay, so this is the site that they are talking about, how they gather this information. They are looking at pretty much everything, including case studies, etc. The way our reviews are, I think they are gathering very similar data. Okay, if you don't have anything, I'm going to move to the next one. So this is coming from 2018, and they were managing freight for BASF. And BASF is one of the largest organization. It's really big. And my understanding is that they got award for like one of the top vendors just because they were managing their entire transportation, which is a big deal in general. So here they are saying, but I mean, this is all consulting. It's not really the platform play because they are sort of doing the managed services the way you are going to do managed IT services or managed procurement services. So here you are doing managed transportation services. I didn't know that managed transportation services was a thing, which is pretty cool because this is probably $1 billion company and they are doing that. So here, okay, so they have roughly about 12,000 different suppliers, and they were selected as one of the top suppliers, and because of the TMS. But TMS is just one thing. Okay, they are using product to enable many services. That's where their real play is in general. The way Transplace was structured. So now Uber is very interesting as well, because now Uber got into TMS business. Uber got into consulting business, which is interesting because they were slightly more consumer centric company, but now they are competing with consulting companies, and they are competing probably with TMS as well as ERP companies.
So does BASF, do they resell this TMS or they use it?
So they are a user. BASF, my understanding is that they are a rail company. If my yeah.
Well, they're huge.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, they are a transportation company. Yeah. By the way, I mean, one of the things that you're going to notice, obviously, when you look at TMS, the industry and the product matters a lot. And these guys had their depth into chemicals, and chemical transportation in general is very different. The way the things that you are going to be needing. So they were always deep into chemicals, and that's where I guess the consulting is going to be in play as well, because handling chemical transport is a very different thing than shipping, let's say, a bag of chips or that can be hard as well, by the way. That's not easy.
You don't need a hazmat suit to ship Pringles?
But
The really spicy ones, Andy. The really spicy ones you do.
every business could have their own nuances, I guess. Even the chips business could be hard because they should not break, Andy, or I'm not buying it. Okay.
That's right. Too many small
Um,
chips, I'm not buying it.
Exactly. So here they have the chemicals, performance products, functional materials and solutions, agricultural solutions, and oil and gas. All of those verticals. Oil and gas is pretty different as well overall in terms of transportation.
Oh yeah.
The kind of
Well, it's kind of on the same level as chemicals, right?
exactly overall from the quality compliance,
Yeah.
transport management, the vehicles that you're going to need is going to be very different as well. So it's a different ballgame. Yeah. One of the things that you're going to notice is they are very, and this layer that we did not cover, I guess, in the beginning, that some companies are really focusing on the US market. So Transplace, even today, I guess they are primarily focusing in the North American market. They don't have a presence anywhere else. Maybe a little bit in Europe, but that's pretty much it. So that's another difference. So, for example, let's say if you are going to be a global company, so by looking at that, you can tell that Coles is not going to use just them as their TMS because most likely they're going to be global company. So yeah, so these guys are really going to be in the US itself. They don't really have global capabilities as of today. So this is another announcement coming from 2019. And this is a very interesting combination because they also, and Descartes, I mean, we reviewed Descartes as well. Descartes has their own TMS, but Descartes, everybody's sort of hanging out with Descartes. The reason for that is because they have very unique data set that nobody else has. So that's why they have to go to Descartes for that data. Anytime you are going to be needing the bill of lading data, Descartes is master at that, especially when you talk about global data, HS code, etc. That's where they are really, really, really good. So that's why everybody's sort of hanging out with them, even SAP and Oracle. Now, so they have announced the partnership. By the way, MacroPoint was a different company that Descartes acquired. So MacroPoint started as more of the sort of the Zoom info of transportation, I guess, data company. They were really strong in data, and then Descartes ended up acquiring them. That's how they got this much data capabilities. So here would allow it to offer end-to-end real-time visibility as a standard feature to its managed transportation. And the end-to-end visibility in supply chain is always the trickiest part. But here you are not talking about end-to-end supply chain for global companies. You are talking about end-to-end supply chain within the US. So end-to-end could mean a lot of different things. So read between the lines there as well. Standard feature to its managed transportation and transportation management customers. Transplace already gave shippers deep visibility into their networks. So they had data, but the data wasn't as good. And that's why they had to partner with these guys, that they already gave the visibility with a variety of technology providers, but coverage had been incomplete due to uneven, carrier adoption, and the service often came with transaction or integration fee. And they are probably streamlining that, and that's why they had to partner with these guys. Transplace says that all of the hundreds of thousands of trucks operating on its platform, and they have used the word trucks, and that's where their play is for the most part, really trucks business. Very similar to your Trimble. Trimble was in the transportation as well as trucking business, so these guys are in that business as well. So the close competitor for Transplace Uber Freight is probably going to be Trimble in general. Operating on its platform in the United States and Canada will use MacroPoint. Adoption of visibility technology in Mexico has been slower. They are talking about a little bit of Mexico. Don't have anything else here. This is, I don't know what is there. Transplace said it chose MacroPoint as a partner for its universal visibility offering primarily because of its deep penetration into the carrier community. So the whole network and the community is big as well. And that's where some of the TMSs are really strong just because they have that network. And sometimes they might have pre-existing integration as well. So rate shopping is going to be super easy. So I guess the network as well as their ability to handle these hazardous goods is where I guess their real differentiator is. Do you guys have any comment? Okay, so here TMS is pulling company forward. Okay, so there's not much there. Transplace will book approximately, so this is where they are saying $3.2 billion in revenue in 2019. But when you are going to look at the figure that Uber paid, it's lower than this, so I don't know what happened there.
Well, especially considering that they have a 16% growth year over year.
Exactly. So I don't know
It's
whether
got to
they
be
bought
over 4
everything.
billion by now.
Exactly. So you would guess that they would probably pay like 20 billion or something like that,
Yeah.
right? But no, I don't think they paid as much. So I don't know, how what happened there. I don't have enough information to conclude that, but something is not, connecting here. Yeah. So it currently has roughly what $10 billion. 10 billion they had under freight, and 3.2 billion was revenue under management in its network, and they are really doing with truck capacity as well as custom brokerage is a big deal. So they are really strong as custom brokerage that Uber did not know anything about custom brokerage business, and it's get very 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 deep overall in terms of the subject matter expertise. So that's why they wanted this. Okay. 10% comes from custom brokerage, which is probably on a lower side. But then company is now top 10 brokerage in North America, which is, that means they had real subject matter expertise there. They were ruling Arkansas, and obviously Arkansas market in general. They have some heavy hitters there: JB Hunt, Walmart, Tyson
Huge
Foods.
customers.
Yeah, huge customers. Exactly. So that's where my challenge is. Once you look at the platform, once you look at their positioning, it's like on a leaner side. Okay, it's not very strong in its capabilities, but then they have these customers as well, primarily I believe either at the subsidiary level or just because of the user experience, as well as the ability to move quicker, which is very, 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 very important in the transportation business. That's
Well,
the
and
go ahead, Dave.
if I was just going to say, I mean, kind of to that point, right? If they've really built their business on the infrastructure and integration side of it, then that's the real value for for these companies. The rest of it, I don't want to say becomes a moot point, but if they can, the barrier probably is much lower on that side of things, as long as they're getting the increased amount of visibility and integration. So. I don't, that's just a bit of conjecture, but that's what I'm hearing going through this.
Yeah, and honestly speaking, I guess I don't know where the real differentiator is. I think there is going to be a little bit of difference overall how your experience is going to be as the dispatch person when you are looking for these drivers to complete your dispatch workflow. But Andy, I'm pretty sure you have looked at some of these smaller TMS systems, and one thing, integration is probably going to be there with those TMS systems as well. They are going to integrate with your UPS, FedEx, a lot of 3PL, so they have the integration. But I guess when you look at the experience itself, meaning they might provide just the rates, but when you look at the actual experience, let's say if you want to book based on the either time or schedule, the way your Uber experience is going to be, okay? So Uber experience is very different from your TMS experience. With Uber, what you are doing is you are saying, okay, this is where I'm starting my journey, and this is where I'm going. Give me my rate. Show me on the map, show me everything where this driver is going to go, etc. That you don't get with those TMS platforms.
Well, I think that.
Oh, sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Andy.
No, I was going to say something funny. So you go ahead.
Oh. Well,
that should be first, right?
Yeah, that should always be first. No, kind of on that point though, Sam, I think that's where the real value is being derived is in that real-time visibility, not so much from I mean, there's certainly value from the what's available and how to book, but I also think a big portion of that for these really large companies is the fact that they can have real-time visibility of inbound and intercompany movement. So they're understanding what that order flow can be and how to increase operational efficiency, through that lens. I think that's the real value that I'm seeing going through this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what I like about Uber the best is when they deliver me hamburgers.
Well, you could get a truckload of hamburgers, Andy.
Exactly.
Ever since COVID.
Okay, so I'm gonna teach you something, Andy. Okay, so
yes,
if
sir.
you are really dying to get hamburgers, make sure you don't order when it is going to snow, because the amount that you are going to pay. Remember that you are never going to have those hamburgers again. Okay, you know how pricing works, right? People were complaining about pricing. It's just nuts sometimes. You might end up paying like 50 times.
Well, it's like if you're at a sporting event and if you call an Uber, at the end of it, you're going to pay through the nose.
Yeah. Yeah, pricing is tricky. And I don't
Yep.
know if they have the same pricing here as well.
Supply and demand.
Sorry, Andy?
Supply and demand.
Yeah, exactly. And some people have complained about this one as well. I don't know if their pricing is going to be similar as Uber pricing even for TMS. If that is the case, I don't know how comfortable you are going to feel, but maybe companies feel okay because they are probably getting cheaper deal, all the time. But I don't know if Uber pricing is used with Uber Freight or not. That is something I don't have information on. So here, I don't have anything else. Okay. So the next one. So this is their announcement, and they just bought it actually in 2021. So it's only been what 2 years now. Uh, okay. So Uber was trying to expand into freight business. Uber Technologies announced to buy this one for 2.0. Okay. So that's where the disconnect is. So $2.25 billion in cash, but they also have stock.
Stocks. Right.
Exactly. So they must have paid a lot. Yeah. So now
I'm
that's
sure
clear.
the value was, impacted because those numbers were pre-COVID as well. So I'm sure there was an impact, in terms of volume, right? Like I'm sure revenue per load probably increased because of demand, but probably from an overall volume standpoint would be impacted, significantly during that time.
Yeah, could not agree more. Yeah. Okay, so if you guys don't have anything else, then we have here they are saying they have. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
No, it's just super interesting, right? Like I mean, it's a fascinating, turn of events, even though it's already transpired. But to see a company like Uber, acquire something like this and how they roll that into their model to leverage the technology. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
and it's probably going to be very interesting to watch in the next 5 years, to be completely honest, because this is a very similar move as Shopify getting into supply chain logistics as well. But they ended up, spinning that off because they could not handle it. I don't know how this is gonna go so far. I think analysts are really excited if you read the news material. Everybody sort of like this because obviously there are synergies, in the business model, but getting from B2C to B2B business model, it's not easy.
Do you know anything? I didn't do any research. I should have, but do you have any insights into TPG Capital? What other holdings they have, and are there any other complementary? I'm just curious if this is like a one-off or is this a supporting piece?
They do a lot in the software space, in the
Okay.
supply chain space,
Okay.
and they were on my list, and that's when I realized, okay, that sounds familiar. Okay, I used to actually track them, but then this is when, okay, I saw, okay, TPG, this is sort of, ring the bell, but then I just didn't know, okay, I was tracking them, so they were definitely on my list because they were part of, top 50 private equity that were involved in any sort of software, I guess. So TPG is definitely there. Okay, so here they are calling Transplace as upstream, Uber Freight is downstream. That's a very interesting comparison, and I think the only reason why they are calling Uber Freight as downstream is because that's slightly more technology and Transplace is really services. But for the most part, if you look at the analyst commentary there, in terms of what they were really excited about this one, they said customers. Because obviously these guys have pretty much everybody in the logistics market, and that's what Uber was really trying to get into, because getting those enterprise accounts, especially in the transportation industry, and Dave, you have spent a lot of time there, could get very political.
Well, there's two ways to get into a market, right?
Right.
Sell into it or buy one.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That is definition of fast tracking.
Exactly. So here we have a united transportation platform with two companies focused on either side of, carrier shipper divide is seen as driving, acquisition. But again, so this is where I'm confused now. So they are saying, here, if you notice, Dave, Andy, they are again saying $2.25 billion acquisition of Transplace. Now they have not mentioned the stocks again. So I'm again confused, but yeah.
I think the number is 2.25 billion in a combination of cash and stock, because my takeaway is timing of this. And again, I don't have any real insight other than these screenshots, but my takeaway would be, volume, would have had to have been down. Overall volume was down during COVID because the world was shut down, right? But price per transaction would have gone up because for the demand that was available, people weren't out there to fulfill that demand. So
how down are we talking about? It's a $4 billion company, Dave.
They
sold it for 2.25.
The world did shut down for 6 weeks.
I know.
6 weeks might not seem like a long time, but
yeah, that's fascinating.
That's my takeaway. I don't, I don't know that for sure. I'm trying to read between the lines a bit, but I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense in terms of, those numbers coming together.
Yeah. Okay. So, we have some more commentary here. They are saying Transplace as a provider of managed. So this is where they have used the term managed transportation services through its transportation management system is viewed as the shipper down operation, providing services to companies looking to move freight to market and having decided to turn over that task to a company like Transplace. So it's really managed services business model. I don't know. I've never heard of shipper down operation term. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, in my mind, this is really the managed services business. Yeah, Uber Freight is, in contrast, is seen as a company that comes to market with a platform primarily aimed at carriers looking to more efficiently find trucks that can move freight, and they are really buying that additional capacity that freight has. And a lot of different companies, startups, they were trying to sort of tap into that additional capacity that was available and how they can really book that using the platforms or technology. I think there were like 3 or 4 different startups that were really big in that space. Go ahead, Dave.
That's the only reason I can think that the value doesn't make sense, because you would think just on the surface, take away the numbers that have been publicized, right? But on the surface, you would think that there'd be a premium paid to move past the sales cycle of that and buy that connection, right? I mean, that's really what they did, because they wanted into that market and to tap into that availability to fast track their ability to crush the competition. So again, on the surface, you would think they would have to pay a premium in order to do that. So
yeah, don't ask me that. Okay, it's not making any sense whatsoever. What happened there?
we need Phil back on here to work through the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. We definitely need him. All right. So some more commentary here. So we have commentary on Uber itself. Trucking companies with loads to haul was acquiring Frisco, Texas.
Well, the $750 million in common stock is part of the $2.25 billion.
Yep.
So our numbers are right. I mean, there is something going on here. It's definitely 2.25 is the price that they paid. But I mean, why would somebody sell? And I think, Dave, your theory probably wins just because they must be down really bad. But I mean, the transaction closed in 2021, so which is also shocking, because by that time COVID was done. So
yeah, you would have thought there would have been a nice rebound coming out of that, which would have pushed the price. You would have thought.
Yeah. Something is very interesting here. So here, or maybe they sold partially. That could be I don't know if they sold everything. My understanding is that it's a complete acquisition. It's not just the technology that they sold. Something is not right. Okay, so then we have some more commentary here. Transplace is number 2 in terms of gross revenue behind Transportation Insight for managed transportation companies. They'll be 8th largest US 3PL at $4.4 billion. And I think this is a slightly older data as well. So they, at one point of time, they were with Transplace at $3.4 billion and Uber Freight at $1.1 billion. Can you believe this? Okay, so Uber Freight was much smaller company. That was much bigger company. They ended up selling for much lower. Again, numbers are not making sense. We have some more commentary here. Yeah, so this is the scan data application that Transplace acquired. So typically in the transportation business, you are going to have 2 different business units in general. Okay, the parcel-based business unit is very different than your 3PL sort of loads, right? So in this particular case, they acquired scan data to get the parcel capabilities, and that's how Transplace got all of the comprehensive capabilities to be a decent, TMS. But then obviously when Uber acquired, they acquired pretty much everything, including scan data. Go ahead, Dave. You had a comment?
No, if anything, it just shoots my theory out of the water, because the one line in there says that, coming out of 2020, gross logistics revenue put them at the 7th largest. I mean, so I guess I kind of retract my previous statement and agree with you that it doesn't make sense what the deal was done for, but that's a whole nother part of.
We probably need to have another episode and get Phil on.
Yeah.
Resolve this mystery. Okay, what's going on here? Somebody. Yeah. Okay. So we have some more, and this one, FEM is a very interesting piece of functionality that I don't think we have seen anywhere else. But here they are talking about freight allocation module, identify capacity, and that is going to be lowest cost per load per lane. I don't think we have discussed lane as well. They actually have acquired a company that did just the lane management. Can you believe this? Okay, so transportation lane is a concept, and you have to sort of book the capacity in those lanes, etc. So it gets very deep overall in terms of the functionality. So FEM 2.0 was that module that Transplace has, and again, we have not seen that anywhere else so far. Go ahead. Any incoming? No. Okay. So FEM 2.0 is an application in Transplace's transportation management system that gives carrier instant visibility to freight, allowing them to real-time access and communication to bits on loads. It allows users instant access to information on transportation services. Again, the real-time sort of lookup in these things is very interesting. Obviously, you can get the rate in some of these smaller TMSs as well. But here you are bidding as well, which could be different in my mind. And by the way, this is per lane as well, which could be very different, because typically when you work with these smaller TMS systems, the only thing they are going to do is they are either going to have the spot rate or they are going to have the contracted rate, and they are doing just the comparison. You have the marketplace, you can shop the rate, but that's it. That's the extent of the smaller TMS system. So here you are doing far more. You are also doing the allocation. Allocation is a big deal in general. Okay, I don't have anything else here. Okay, so this is their case study, and by the way, I mean, they are trying to do a lot of consulting. Okay, so if you look at Uber Freight case studies, now they are doing packaging consulting. Okay, which is just mind blowing. Why would you get into the packaging consulting market? So now they are competing with what, Accenture? That's crazy. Okay, so here they are saying a leading forklift manufacturer had launched its new series of pantograph reach trucks. They have some commentary there in terms of what they have done. But overall, if you look at the case study, I mean, the case study is really for consulting, which does not make any sense why Uber is trying to get into that business. The supplier was shipping most of the painted parts, on pallets to avoid having parts rub against each other. I get it. And these are the problems that typically your either warehouse consultants are going to solve or packaging consultants are going to solve. Now Uber Freight is competing with them. Increase the inbound transportation cost by 75%. So they have their in-house consulting that is helping with this. The challenge was efficient packaging for select new parts, improve material handling, reduce inbound transportation cost. Dave, comment? This is your deal, Dave. This is your
man.
They are trying to compete with you.
Like they're taking food off my table, I feel like.
Now Uber is competing with Dave.
Yeah, I agree. This is a bit of an oddity. I mean, even if the conversation started there, a bit of an oddity to showcase this, but and completely agree with where what you're saying in terms of who would typically be going after things like this.
So Dave, this is my time for joke, and now on your site, I guess you remember when Acumatica used to show how we are different from other ERP vendors? Now you can show how Dave Flights are different from Uber Freight, I guess.
Apparently, I mean, that's I would have to expand my competitor list, I suppose.
Oh my goodness!
Wow, yeah. It's certainly an outlier.
Okay, so I don't have anything else here. Okay, so now let's look at their platform, which is obviously very neat. One of the things that you're going to notice here is this is very cloud native. Their closest competitor, in my mind, is going to be Trimble TMW. That's where we saw very deep functionality. I guess that's a comment that you guys had, Dave, Andy, if you remember that, they had very, very, very deep functionality for dispatch workflow for transportation 3PL businesses. But here, obviously, the functionality is not going to be as deep, but technology is going to be far superior. So you get one thing, right, Andy? Either you get technology or you get functionality. So here you are getting really good technology, but not as much functionality. And that's where my disconnect is that, okay, they are able to win these enterprise logos. So some of those logos could be because of consulting business, not necessarily because of platform. So it's very confusing in terms of why they are winning there. For the most part, they are doing the managed transportation business and the consulting. That's why they are able to win all of those logos, not because of TMS, not because of the TMS platform.
And I'll tell you, whenever any of these software companies are promoting logos, sometimes it's a very impressive logo, but it's only one division or one section of a division it uses, or they might not even use it. They might have bought it and put it on their shelf, right? You don't know.
That's always a possibility, Andy.
I know.
That's always a possibility. Okay, so here, a couple of things that you're going to notice. I mean, their workflow is very similar to a TMS platform. The simpler TMS platform that you are going to use primarily for rate shopping. Obviously, this one is going to do a lot more. In general, the way the workflow is going to work, but this is a very similar workflow as your Trimble TMS, where you are going to have origin, where you can do a little bit of searches here, in terms of where you are picking it from, where you are dropping it to from the transportation lane perspective. But overall, when you look at this, this is a very different sales order, because again, this is supposed to be a TMS platform. TMS platform is going to be slightly different than your WMS as well as your ERP. Sometimes ERP vendors claim that they could act as the TMS. No, you cannot. Okay, it's a very, 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 very different business model. It's a very different workflow, very different transaction. Now they get into a little bit of accounting, and this is where I guess the dotted line is that you need to pay attention to. Okay, so if you are a trucking business, you are a transportation business, and sometimes and that we saw in the case of your Trimble as well, that they are doing accounting, but the accounting is going to be more for the trucking business. If you are using this as the TMS platform, as let's say the distributor, retailer, or manufacturing business, then you will not be using accounting. So even though you have build to, but again, the build to is more from the carrier perspective. So you need to, design the architecture if you are going to use this as part of your business model just for the transportation component. And that's where the build to is going to be very tricky. I don't know how you are going to manage that, because here they are saying, okay, I am picking from this location, I'm dropping it to this location, and I'm going to be billing somebody else. And sometimes in the transportation business, somebody else might pay for freight, and that's why you are going to get a third business. That's why the way the customer hierarchy works is very different from your ERP workflow in general. You are going to see a lot of AR/AP. Again, this is the perspective of carrier business, trucking business, transportation business, a little bit of 3PL. So the perspective is very different the way you need to look at this. But here, when you are going to notice, okay, they are Baker distributing. So you are going to feel, okay, why are they using this? Are they using your financials? Are they using bill to from the TMS platform? It could be tricky to design. It could be really tricky to design. Okay, if you guys don't have anything. So, okay, this is also example of Baker distributing, obviously, and they are able to add a lot of different stops, which would be a TMS functionality in general, and this is one of the easiest workflows that I have seen in terms of adding the stops, in terms of adding the earliest appointment, latest appointment, actual arrival. So this is where your scheduling dispatch workflow is generally handy. So they are doing a good job. But again, it's going to be very confusing when a distribution company is going to use this, and they are going to have an ERP in workflow as well. And then WMS, probably their bread and butter probably is going to be inside WMS. This is not even going to be WMS.
But this is because this is a TMS system, right?
This is a TMS system primarily for trucking companies. That's how I would read this. Even though the example that they have shown is really for distribution company, sometimes distribution companies might use just the e-commerce like Shopify, and then they might use Uber Freight. They might skip everything else just because the warehouse might not be as busy, I guess. Uh, so the architecture could be all over the place, but this is primarily TMS designed for transportation companies. If you have your in-house fleet, you could use this as well, but really as the TMS component, you are not going to be using accounting as well as the build to functionality, I guess. Go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say the rate shopping looks to be pretty simple to use.
So they have the EDI integration, and that EDI integration we saw in the case of your Descartes, not Descartes. Descartes had that. I think Descartes had, right? So so this EDI integration that you have. So as soon as you are going to shop for the rate, the carrier is going to get the message. They get the message for the rate, but I mean you can also book the capacity using one click, which is very fascinating in general.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. And the other thing that you are going to notice is chemical companies are very different because they do maintain in-house fleet. And that's where the differentiator is going to be. So even though they are going to be chemical manufacturer, they might have in-house fleet and they are going to require far deeper TMS capabilities than other companies. That could be another reason why they might be using this as their main sort of workflow platform. But then you are noticing here some things like you are never going to see this in any other platform. I guess some ERP systems might sort of overload their capabilities, but things such as your UN class, packaging group, UN number, what else do you have here? You have things such as NMFC number. So this is very chemical centric, functionality that is going to be very unique. But then you also have GL code. So how is this going to communicate with your accounting system is going to be interesting as well. Even if it can communicate, I mean, you are simply reporting. You don't have that immersive experience that you are probably going to get, from your ERP. So again, the architecture and design could be very tricky with this, how you are going to design and what role it is going to play in the architecture. If you guys don't have any comment, I can move to the next one. So this is your, the spot quote, feature that they have. So as soon as you are going to hit the spot quote button, shopping for a spot quote, that's where you are sort of selecting the carrier, mode, currency, line haul, a lot of things that I don't think we have seen in any other platform so far. So a lot of details there overall in adding that. Once you are going to add, then you can sort of choose the default rate that you are going to use for that carrier. You have all of those feature sets built up. That's probably their sweet spot in general. Okay, then this is where it sort of ties, but I mean, it's very interesting the way, you have correlation between your customer PO number and your sales order number. Now, sales order number is going to belong where? Is it coming from your e-commerce? Is it coming from ERP? Is it coming from WMS? Is WMS doing the handshake? Where is it coming from? Okay. So if you look at the transportation business, easy. Okay. Because they could use this as their order capture system, e-commerce centric system, because they are doing the order processing. They are doing order capture right here. Easy peasy. Right. But then when you are going to get into distribution business, retail business, e-commerce business, it could be tricky. Okay. Any comments, guys? No? Okay, so here they are. So this is your bill of lading. They are trying to send the bill of lading. They are sending tender, in real time to the carrier. Then you are sort of assigning the shipment. So typically 2 business objects that you are going to see in major, 3PL businesses, that is going to be your shipment as well as movement. And movement is going to be the steps that a shipment goes through in the life cycle of the supply chain, right? Those are the movements. You are going to have legs. You are going to have hops. And here, this is the shipment life cycle. So shipment is really their order sort of form that they are taking it through different legs as well as different movements. So here, this is your bill of lading, right? That you can print. That is very natural functionality inside TM. Now, if you look at their admin, it's very, very, very lean. They just have a bunch of GL codes that you can probably add. They have a bunch of locations that you can add. Now, what is correlation between these locations? To your customer addresses, that could be tricky. So if you look at this more from the lean TMS perspective, it might be okay. But when you are implementing this for Walmart, I'm not sure. And go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, why would you say not for Walmart?
Because the number of layers, Andy, that you have in this, it's very lean.
Yeah.
It's designed to be simple. You know,
But
so again,
simple isn't always bad.
well, so depending upon what you're trying to achieve, I guess, and what kind of reporting you are trying to build, what kind of approval flow you are trying to build, you need to have those hierarchies built as part of your data model. Here, the data model is very simple. Uh, Dave, you have a comment?
No, I was just trying to reconcile your guys' conversation because I agree with both of you, and the only thing that seems like it would make sense in that scenario for a company of that size is, this is really the kind of bolt-on extension piece, and everything would remain, in like the case of Walmart, is going to remain in their ERP and
SAP or whatever it
WMS.
is.
Like there's just no other, none of it. It wouldn't make sense otherwise, at least from my experience. And the other thought that's been kind of running through my head the last couple of slides with the the Uber is, I wonder if the kind of play with this is going to be an even more simplified version to open this up from that Uber Freight perspective, because I think what they were really potentially looking to buy was the access to, to the access to the capacity, right? And this is what would give them that. But this, in a lot of sense, seems like it would be overkill. Kind of to your point, Sam, like you wouldn't implement this where in a distribution business where you'd really need to implement, WMS for sure and possibly ERP combination, right? So it's very, I don't know, it just got my mind working. It's very interesting where this platform sits and who they're servicing today. Again, the only thing that makes sense to me is that a lot of the source of truth and all of that stays in ERP. This is, a very high level handshake, and there's, very specific functionality that is being executed within this system alone.
So here's a joke for you. Okay, so I think Uber figured out that what, tech was going to be down in 2023. I mean, consulting business was never cool. I mean, tech was always cool. Who wanted to get into consulting business? But Uber figured out, and that's why they wanted to get into consulting business. Can you believe this? That's crazy.
Well, they got a great case study, I'll tell you.
Oh boy. Okay, so we have some reviews, and this review is for scan data. It's not really for Transplace, and sometimes it might be harder to find reviews, independently, especially if they have acquired so many different products. So here, this is for scan data, and in this particular case, this is the package, freight delivery company, decent sized company, roughly 1,000 employees, and here they are saying scan data product, high volume, and their team makes it mass customizable. And again, why are you customizing? Because obviously you don't have functionality. That's why you are customizing. This space that has a robust parcel manifesting and labeling system for high volume shippers, then they do at the same time, they can customize it at very low cost. Does not make any sense. Then we have one more review here. Uber Freight simplifies logistics for the small business. So even small businesses agreeing that, it's simplified for a small business, but then they are also winning in the enterprise play. Again, there is a little disconnect there.
What is that balloon that says scalability? What is that referring to, Sam?
So that's basically, here they are saying a small business. It is designed for a small business. So a small business is feeling that it's designed for me. That means scalability is not there. The bigger businesses are not going to feel it's designed for them. Either you can design a product for a small, or you can design for large. You can't attack both market with the same product. It's a design issue.
I understand what you're saying, but it just seems like that Scan Data is a pretty good sized company.
So Scan Data is the company that Transplace acquired, and they acquired that for the e-commerce side of business, for the parcel TMS. So yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense here, Andy. Am I?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, completely. It doesn't seem like they're targeting that small a company.
Scan Data is the company that Transplace acquired, and the packaging company is trying to use Scan Data. Scan Data is a tool, that they are trying to use. But Scan Data is now a part of your Transplace, which is a TMS. So they are.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
I thought they were a customer.
No. Okay, so here we have some more commentary. Okay, so this is where they have mentioned that this only operates in the United States. The platform primarily focuses on dry van freight and may not be suitable for shipping certain types of goods. So they have limitation there as well. Some shippers have reported issues with communication and transparency when it comes to booking and tracking shipments, and I think some companies have reported that as well. That typically in transportation business, if you commit for a delivery, you need to show up. Okay, that's how transportation business works. But in their case, they are sort of, even if you book, it's sort of, it doesn't work sometimes. So that's what people don't like it. Here they are saying unreliable but cheap. They are saying because the rates are so cheap, the appointment confirmation is unreliable. Can you believe this? This is going to throw off all your capacity. So I don't know how you are going to use this. And by the way, this is a very small company.
This is really small, yeah.
Yeah. The notification until an hour, before the scheduled pickup, that they could not find a driver to take your load. Can you believe this? The warehouse is putting all this effort, and the driver does not show up. This is crazy, guys. Now we have one professional review. We can take this, and then we can take the comments, I guess. So here, this one is perspective from a freight forwarder. So obviously, this guy is professional. He's saying you get what you pay for. Uber is cheap. He's right. They are paying the drivers, then they could be making elsewhere. I don't know the driver comp. I think drivers still make a lot. The Uber drivers that I have personally spoken to, they are fairly happy in general based on the money that they make, but they are not full-time drivers, so that could be an issue as well. Okay, so they have compared this with one of the app from China. Uber Freight app is just about as useful as ordering a car on their B2C app. That's how he has compared, which is crazy comparison of a TMS. But I have to agree with him, to be completely honest. Yeah, Uber Freight works like magic, but then we see driver cancellation, so he has complained about that as well. So planning, capacity, scheduling, it's probably not going to work. All right, so yeah, we'll open up for the comment.
I think from my perspective, it's interesting. For a while, in a couple of these slides, I was thinking something a bit different, but the last couple of user slides, I think, clarified it for me. But my stance on it, it seems as though this was really a play to be able to tap into the capacity and the data infrastructure that Transplace has developed over the course of a long time. So it seems like kind of a parallel track where Uber's going to continue to tap into what they purchased and continue to dive into the small business market and leverage that technology while still pushing Transplace for large independent customers. So at one point I was thinking something different, but that's what it seems like to me. And interesting the way that they've built this out. It'll be really interesting to see how Uber Freight leverages their investment and what it means for small business community.
Yeah, great commentary. Thank you so much, Dave. Andy?
We've been over the last few weeks evaluating some of these more targeted products like WBSP516, and it's. Do you know the price point of this product, Sam?
They have mentioned it's really cheap, right? So that means
I know. I heard really cheap, whatever that means, right?
But do we know if
I guarantee this?
Do we know if that is tied to the Transplace or to the Uber Freight side of things?
You don't have Transplace anymore. It's all Uber Freight. Transplace does not exist. I mean, it's all. If you go to Transplace site right now, it's all Uber Freight right now. They don't. They have killed the brand.
Got it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, I always find it interesting when a company like Uber, for example, have been able to diversify, and regardless of how quality their product is, they're diversifying their business and getting into other areas of industry and apparently doing very, very well.
Yeah, very interesting commentary, guys. Any other final comments before I close? No? All right, guys, so that's a wrap. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another review of a vendor or a solution. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, guys.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. It's TheChrysler. essoft.club. If you want to learn more about NT Practical, head over to essoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.